Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, yet they shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Friends, we have gathered here to praise God and to witness to our faith as we celebrate the life of Wilfred Collison Files Jr., our dear friend Will. We come together in grief, acknowledging our human loss. May God grant us grace, that in pain we may find comfort, in sorrow we may find hope, and in death we may see resurrection. Will you please stand as you are able for our opening prayer? Let us pray. Eternal God, we praise you for the great company of all those who have finished their course in faith and now rest from their labor. We praise you for all those departed dear to us, whom we remember in our hearts today. Especially we praise you for Will, whom you have graciously received into your presence. To all of these, grant your peace. Let perpetual light shine upon them and bring us at the last with them into the joy of your peace and love. Give us now your grace, that as we shrink before the mystery of death, we may see the light of eternity. Amen. You may be seated. Our opening song today is one of Will's favorite hymns. It's called Let There Be Peace on Earth. And I invite Ola and Dave to share their music with us today.
Would you please stand and open your bulletin for Psalm 23? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all of the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Please remain standing for the gospel. Jesus said, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I'm going. I will not leave you orphaned. I am coming to you. In a while the world will no longer see me, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. I have said these things to you while I am still with you, but the Advocate, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you everything, and remind you of all that I have said to you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid." A reading from John. Please be seated.
In Will's heart, there were many rooms. There was a spark room, dedicated to his love of gathered community and physical activity. There was a tennis room, right next door to the pickleball room. There was a huge room that spanned across time zones and national borders. That was his Rotary room. There was a room dedicated to his brothers in the faith, where everyone could share their differing opinions through respectful discourse. There was a coastal studies room that overlooked an ocean of love. There was a room with cathedral-like dimensions that was filled with his deep well of faith and love of congregational life. And of course, there was a family room, a room in which he treasured the love of not only his own children, but also Martha Ellen's. There were many rooms in Will's heart, but they were not separated by high walls or strong boundaries. They were connected by doors and windows and hallways and underground tunnels and secret passages. There were a lot of rooms in Will's heart, but they were all connected to each other, because that may just be the thing that Will did best: connect. Will connected people and organizations and activities. As Martha Ellen always says, Will was an extrovert. He never met someone who wasn't a friend. He was endlessly fascinated by people, and he had an unerring ability to find out what you were interested in and get you talking about it. Will had a really big heart, full of lots of rooms, scores of people, and countless pathways connecting them all. When Jesus says, "In my Father's house there are many dwelling places," I imagine that heaven is a lot like Will's heart. There might be different, separate, unique spaces for us all, but they are all connected. And there is room for us all. We will all be welcomed for who we are, and we will be eternally connected. Even though everyone gathered here in person today and everyone who's joining us on the live stream from home knew Will in different ways, through different groups or in different settings, we all knew the same Will, the big-hearted, kind man who was interested in everyone and built community wherever he went. Today we both mourn our loss and we celebrate Will's life, knowing that he lives on in each and every one of us. To start our time of remembrance today, some family members are going to share their experiences with their father. Bear, Kirby, and Ruth are going to speak today, and Bear is going to start us out.
Today, we say goodbye to a caring father, a loving husband, and a proud grandfather. He meant so much to so many, and he cared deeply for everyone. In his early years, he was a home builder, a teacher, a pilot, and a volunteer organist in his church. His endless energy helped him achieve everything he set his mind to. But it was when he moved to Southeast Alaska that he met his soulmate and fell in love with this hamlet by the sea in Homer, Alaska. You could see his joy in every interaction he had with the people of his community. When we would stop at the store, we'd always need to plan a few extra minutes for socializing and a few more for ice cream. For those lucky enough to know him, he cared about all of us and wanted nothing more than to build us up and to see us succeed. And his love extended around the world through his many Rotary trips and philanthropy. I firmly believe his legacy will be felt for generations to come. As we look back and take lessons on how he led his life. As I think about how to move forward without him in our lives, I am not afraid. I know that he lives on in all of us, and I hope we can take inspiration from the approach he took to every challenge he encountered. He would get a far-off look in his eye, and you could tell he had a clear goal in mind. And he'd say, where there's a will, there's a way. So today, I hope we can all get started living our best lives and take the first steps in our new journeys without my papa in our lives. I know he is looking down and smiling at us all. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. 2 weeks ago, I found myself on top of Mount Baldy in the New Mexico desert, co-leading a scout trip. As we set up bear bags, ate rations, and admired the wild beauty, I thought of the man who brought me there and whose life we are honoring today, my papa. I spent my summers with Papa along the Yukon River, where he taught me to skip a rock, shoot a rifle, drive a boat, park a trailer, and fly a plane. His degree from Trinity was in teaching and music enriched our days through his organ playing and his happy whistle. Papa showed us through his example that communities are built much like the first A-frame house that he built, piece by piece. One summer, as we headed out on the river in his 16-foot flat-bottomed riverboat, I was presented with the strangest gift, a pair of wooden water skis, perhaps the first pair ever seen in the Alaskan interior. We drove up the black waters of the Porcupine River, where my brother and I proceeded to learn, through trial and error, how to get up on the water skis behind the underpowered 40-horsepower Yamaha motor. However much fun we had, we soon realized that these were not just for us. At the next native fish camp we visited, Papa landed, exchanged greetings, and probably some smoked salmon. And before we knew it, offered to take the boys there out on their first water skiing adventure. An act of kindness mixed with twinkle all Papa. Papa was an extrovert who traveled the world with the Rotary Club and organized health fairs, built Spark, and devoted hours to his church. His devotion to his blended family was equally strong and has been felt as we planned this service. So, how did I come to be in the desert 2 weeks ago? Like all good teachers, my Papa inspired people to do those things they never dreamed they could. Leading a group of 15-year-olds on a 90-mile trek through the mountains of New Mexico, it first sounded overwhelming to me. However, I could hear my dad talking about the amazing young people enjoying God's country, the great outdoors, and I took a step forward. Today, on this hard day, I think of all the seeds he planted like Alaskan wildflowers, and know he would be happy that we're together, growing and learning. I'll miss him.
Will did not raise me or my siblings. He stepped into our lives after we were adults. And my husband Brad and I were raising children of our own. He was truly a gift to our family. He was devoted to my mother and loved her in word and deed. Although their personalities were very different, he always honored and respected who she was. Her strengths helped him to grow, and his strengths lifted her up. Will was a man who loved God and loved others. He never drew attention to himself, though in his quiet way looked for ways to make the world a better place. He was very intelligent and yet humble. He took an interest in everybody he met, putting honor and value on each individual, whether they were a beggar on the street or a CEO of a company. He had a way of lifting people up and making them feel special. My husband and I lived on the mission field in Nicaragua for 14 years. And Mom and Will came to visit us. It was a poverty-stricken area. It was 11 years ago they came, and conditions were not easy. And they weren't young even then. But Will went right to work, hooking up with every Rotary Club, looking for ways to improve people's lives. He and Mom became friends with the people in our mission, the children, the young adults, and the youth. And they loved them so much. They talk about them all the time years later. And they were deeply saddened to hear and express their love and sympathy to Mom and our families, our blended families. Will always had good advice for me, and during these last few days, I more than once thought, what would Will do? He taught me about public speaking. He said, to be short and concise, if I had photos, don't show 50 of them, do 5 or 10 that will impact people and don't bore people. I'm sorry if I break those rules today. I'm trying. Because Mom married him later in life, my siblings and I didn't have a chance until now to meet his family. We all lived in different parts of the country. But my mom always said, Will and I were so blessed because we both love each other's kids. He loves my kids and I love his. She always spoke highly of you all. And she would tell me, I know if you met them, you would love them too. She was right. Suddenly this week, we're all together in one place in one time, and there's an instant bond. Part of that was that we shared our grief over losing Will. But for me, it was more. I see so much of him in his sons. I see Will's gentle and kind spirit in Kirby, and his friendly people personality in Bear. I realize that in a sense, Will lives on through them, because a part of him would always be with them. I saw what a great father he had been to you, father-in-law, to this sweet Amory, and Annie, who I haven't met, and grandfather to Austin. What a terrific young man he is. And to the other two, but I haven't met them. An old African proverb says it takes a village to raise a child. This week we all came together, and I saw that it took all of us to fit his shoes. Each of us doing our part to help Mom, and along with this wonderful community who reached out in so many ways. I'm reminded of the Psalm 34:18, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. I have experienced this so much this week as we gather together and mourn our loss, loving and comforting one another. The Lord is very near. And we have dear memories to cherish. Our work goes on as we take on the baton and carry the torch that he left behind. Years ago, Mom and Will and my husband Brad and I went to the movies. And we saw a movie called I Can Only Imagine. And it's a true story about the person who wrote the song. If you know the song, I Can Only Imagine, by Mercy Me. And it was a beautiful story about a son and his father and how they got reconnected. They had a bad past, but it ended with much love between this father and son. And then this father died. And he wrote this song. I'm not going to sing it because I'm not a singer, but I'm going to read some of the words. Oh, I forgot to say that Will was deeply impacted by that movie, and it really touched him. I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance with you, Jesus, or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine what I will do is forever, forever worship you. When people pass away, a lot of people say, rest in peace. But I imagine, I imagine the Lord has plenty for him to do and he's busy up there.
Well, you all know that if this was an open memorial service, the entire town would have shown up with their love for Will. But I appreciate how careful the family is being, not just to keep Martha Ellen safe, but to keep our whole community safe. And so there's representatives from many of the organizations that Will was a part of who are going to share their memories today. And so I'd like to invite Will's friends from Center for Alaskan Coastal Studies to share with us.
To look for a coat and tie so I could dress appropriately, so the cannery boots are just what you have when you live across the bay. You can take the boy out of the country, but not the country out of the boy. Well, Martha Ellen, I'll observe that Will would have liked to deflect any praise from himself, and the highest things of praise I can say about him are from sonnets from the Portuguese by Robert Barrett Browning. And he said of his beloved that they strove for right and turned from praise. And given that I think that's a beautifully noble thing to say, I'd observe that instead of focusing on Will's qualities, which you've heard from the family, nobody could say it better, but I thought it would be interesting to set the context of the times into which Will distinguished himself so beautifully for the Center for Coastal Studies. It was 1966, I was just out of military school, a young officer on the way to Vietnam, saw Ketchimak Bay and was struck, like probably everybody in this room, when you look over the hill and you go, oh my goodness, this is it. And then at some point later, Will and I were in the airplane, in my airplane over the bay, and we looked down, and I think we jointly realized the opportunity that was in front of us to do something really significant for the community. And a mere 10 years after my arrival, all of Ketchimak Bay was sold for oil development. The Homer Spit would have been an oil refinery or something like it. And a group of us came together and went to the Supreme Court and succeeded against all odds in protecting Ketchimak Bay. And Warren Matthews, who championed the course pro bono as a lawyer, carried the flag that said Ketchimak Bay is so biologically rich and so biologically diverse in its marine resources, it deserved protection. And when Will was inspired by that kind of language that came out of the Supreme Court hearing, I think he was motivated, maybe in a way, I can't say that he'd never been before, but he certainly threw his gusto into reinforcing that language. Keep in mind that there was a time in Homer, those days, there was no rotary, there was no there was no Cook Inlet Keeper. The only thing in town really happened that was drawing the community together was the Pratt Museum. And Sam Pratt was alive, and all sorts of interesting things were happening there. One of the most important was Betsy Pitzman, who drew the community together in a beautiful way. Subsequently then, all manner of fabulous things happened when Will joined the board and became a part of this group of people that I describe how we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, those people that have set role model examples for us. And looking around this room, you know, every person in this room has been a role model to other generations. And those people that are doing that are people to cherish and honor, and I'm doing that standing here. So I meant to start with this, and I missed my note here, but Will would have liked this, I think. The Inupiat people, or the indigenous people of Alaska in general, would remind you that the most precious gifts that you can have are not things of substance, not gifts as we would see them today, insubstantial things, namely songs and poems, or songs and stories and dances. And there's a very beautiful one that Will loved when we shared it. And this person is saying that everything is more beautiful. My life is more wonderful since it was given to me to see that is my friends and family who make my life grand. And I can't imagine a more beautiful thing than that. And Will's association and respect for the First Nations people of Alaska and throughout the world is a further statement of that. And Will's engagement was with people like Peter Larson and Gary Thomas, and a list of people too long to name, but I pointed out a couple of the luminous people like him, And again, it's the issue of role modeling. You know, every one of us has a chance to be a role model, to do what we can to make a difference in anybody's life. As we're talking here downstairs, if you didn't know it, there's volunteers down there putting food in bags for people in this town that don't have enough to eat. And as I walked through there, I honored them and complimented them. Anytime any of us are doing anything for other people, that's Will's role model. That was Will's flag, always, you know. What can I do to be helpful? What can I do to help the lives of children at the Center for Coastal Studies, which what he did there for us, I'll end with this. I was talking to Boyd Walker the other day and talking about the loss of Will, and he said, I remember a time when we were out on the Homer Spit and we were crawling around inside these great big steel cylinders. There was a time when the Center for Coastal certainly had no dock, and the Coastal Studies Center, and we didn't have the building in Homer. And to get people back and forth from Jack Montgomery's Rainbow Connection boat onto the shore, Will and I and some others built a log raft. We can guess how that went over. It didn't survive a winter very well, so come springtime, people get off the boat to go ashore to do their marine studies as often as not, with Will acting as sort of a docent, and the darn platform would almost go underwater or go underwater, and people got their feet wet. But anyway, I think Will was influential in getting a donation of a steel floating platform with these big long cylinders on both sides. And when it was deemed that that thing needed some serious maintenance, we took the steel covers off, climbed inside this thing, and Will was in there. I can't tell you how nasty a job it was, but like Will's indefatigable willingness to take on whatever the job was, he led the charge, kept us laughing, helped us get even dirtier than we were. So anyway, thank you all. I kind of see this as a Norman Rockwell painting, you know, people that come together in small towns who love each other, who care about this town that you live in, and are constantly doing the best you can to help the kids, help the kids, help the kids. And likewise, help the policy and decision makers, those people who are trying to make the right decisions about what to do with this Kachemak Bay or the state of the country. Bless you all, my friends.
Well, first I have to say it's hard for me to imagine this community and this place without Will Files in it. It's very hard. I came into the center well after some of the beginnings that were a little more difficult than when I came in 1998. But Will was one of the first people who welcomed me to the community, to CACS, and then he served kind of as my, I won't say confidant, but he'd like to help me understand the culture of the Center for Alaska Coastal Studies and of Homer. And so that meant I shared a lot of laughs with him. And I also got to see, you know, firsthand, and he moved so much by his kindness, his thoughtfulness, as he explained, you know, what they were trying to accomplish and all the things that had happened, some of them rather humorous, such as one Mike just mentioned. But I'll just echo what Mike said, that Will just so genuinely was interested and willing to help out in any way that he could. And early on, that meant I would call him up frantically with a computer problem, until he cheerfully said, you know what, it's beyond me now. I'm gonna move on to other things. Or it meant hauling things, and the center hauls things everywhere, back and forth across the bay and up to Wind Nature Center, cutting down spruce beetle-killed trees. And then later he was hauling, or not hauling, but helping escort some of the youth groups that he arranged and the tours through Rotary. He was just always available, and he always brought to every task that he had such humor and such joy in life, and he had this amazing talent that I have seen some people have it, but very few, to make hard work fun for everyone who's involved. And so he was a very inspiring person in that way, and he lifted up everybody with any task that he was involved in. He also was, you know, an incredible visionary as well for the center. As Mike mentioned, he wanted to see how that mission could actually be accomplished. He was responsible for some really meaningful service projects and educational programs for youth and adults, and many of them have continued today. But he not only could envision, you know, what could happen, he would pitch in for whatever it took to make it happen and to continue happening. There's a saying that you should be the change you wish to see in the world, and I think Will is someone who, what he saw, what he wished, was always for the good. for the good of the organization and all other organizations he was a part of, for the community, for the world, really, and every person he met, as his family said. And so that's my inspiration from Will.
Thank you, Marilyn. You've heard from Marilyn Sigmund, who was the executive director for how many years, Marilyn? 10, a decade. And Mike McBride, of course, who was at the very beginning of the Center for Alaskan Coastal Studies. I had the great pleasure to be the president for many years and then have been convening the Elders Council for the Center for Alaskan Coastal Studies, which was a gathering, still is a gathering of the past presidents of our organization. There, the wisdom of elders was shared, the dreams of the current executive director was shared, and we all potlucked together in joy and happiness and gratitude for the vision that Will had participated in so directly. So Mike suggested the thing that we could give from an Indigenous point of view is a song, a dance, and a poem. So I would like to dance some images to you, the family. Many of you I have not met. Martha, Ellen, and Stan, I have met you and have been deeply enriched by your friendship. So here goes, let's see what happens. And in the time of Will Files, he brought great joy to our tables. And in the time of Will Files, he brought incredible stands of joy. And at the time of Will Files, he sat with other elders, asking and wondering why. And at the time of Will Files, he digitized his wisdom. And at the time of Will Files, he gathered with those who knew from the beginning we needed to walk with each other because we belong to each other. And at the time of Will Files, he gathered and at the time of Will Files, they all have images of a man who has moved us so. So let me share these with you before I go. And at the time of Will Files, we knew that there was so much more to give, and with such generosity. Dearest Martha Ellen wrote this. Can you read that?
Girls entered the coastal study with a big draw for me in our first meeting. My friends had brought their school children to the CACS program, and it inspired both the children and their parents to understand more of the prayers that inhabit the sea beaches.
Thank you. And he stepped into our hearts, and he will never leave.
As we continue our time of sharing today, I'd like to invite up Maynard and Doug, who are two of the men who had breakfast with Will once a week for years, if not decades, as part of one of our church small groups men's breakfasts.
You might well ask, what is a breakfast group doing in this list of august organizations with vast resources and activities? I don't know, but it may be the oldest, because I've been here 47 years. And there's been a breakfast group all that time. It was always just an informal group, 4, 5, 6, 8, maybe a dozen at the most. But nobody ever kept any records, so there's no record of who came or who didn't come. Nobody knows when Will came. He just showed up. But once he was there, he was a very loyal, dependable, as he was in any organization. I can tell you, he became, I would call it a super regular member. Always in town. When he was in town, he would always be at the Thursday breakfast. I tried to think of something about Will that perhaps you don't know, but I expect you know him better than I do. You get any 8 to 10 guys sitting around tables, and what do you get? You get 8 to 10 opinions. Almost any topic, especially politics. Now, I personally would shy away from those topics, but not Will. He loved to come in with a bit of news that he'd heard, and he'd kind of drop it in the group like a little hand grenade. I think he liked it best when he could get someone to disagree with him. I tried not to disagree. Well, there was one thing. He was an Apple man, and I was a PC man. Nothing was ever going to change that. But we were, in Will's fashion, we were free to exchange friendly barbs about our choices in computer operating systems. I think it was just 3 weeks ago that we found some interesting common ground. That organ there. He called me up and he said it was a strange noise coming from the speakers. And he wanted to help me. Well, I never knew Will was that good at the organ until he started playing for the service. I know he had a little keyboard at home. But he never knew that one of my hobbies was fixing organs. And we were going to get together here and solve this problem together. So, Will, if you can help me solve this problem, I'll send up a prayer of thanks. Peace to you, Brother Will.
I always hate to follow Maynard in just about anything. I think he probably does it on purpose. I'm a new member of the men's group relatively, and I'm new to Will Files, really, although my wife's known him for 40 years or 50 or something like that. But Will was so kind. He would start throw those little hand grenades that Maynard mentioned, and you could disagree with some people. You can't, and some people don't listen, but Will listened, and he was kind. And sometimes I thought, I wonder what he really thinks, because he would put things out there. And as time went by, I learned some of the things that he thought. He thought that people should be respected, no matter who they were. He thought it was good to be kind. Will was also competitive. Not so much in arguing, at least not with me, because there were other people there that were competitive that he could exercise that talent with. But I also knew Will, I probably knew him better on the pickleball court, because we had one-on mano-a-mano interactions there. And we really both did not like to lose. And both being old, we had some similar handicaps or skills. I couldn't play the age and treachery card, win over youth with Will, you know. But I loved playing with him because he had such a good time. And isn't that what it's supposed to be about in games and in life, is also to have a good time. I'll miss him.
Thank you so much, all of you who have spoken so far. It's beautiful to see so many aspects of Will. Next, I'd like to invite up the representatives for the Rotary Club of Homer Downtown.
Kathy thinks she doesn't have anything to say, but hopefully she'll think of something. Anyway, I first met Martha, Ellen, and Will in 1999 when I moved to Homer, and we would attend the wonderful dinners after First Friday. And Rotary came later for me, and late in 2000, Will and Steve Yoshida, Noko Yoshida, and I worked on World Health Fairs together. And Martha Ellen always supported us in the background. And in 2006, Will was instrumental in the formation of the Rotary Club of Homer Downtown. And he continued to be a strong supporter of our club, and he was always there for us. He would attend our meetings, he would help with our projects, and provide such sage wisdom, and he was always there for us. Whenever we needed his advice and help, he was always there for us. In fact, Will has always been there for the Homer community. As we go forward, I must remember to pause and ask, what would Will do? Hopefully, I will be able to make the same excellent decisions that Will would make, and I will continue to miss him. And we're all going to take and spend time with you, Martha Ellen, and you're going to be very well taken care of too. And I also have some messages from Russia and from Steve and Noko Yoshida that I'd like to share with you. From Evgenia Terakova in Russia. Accept please my sincere sympathy due to the untimely passing of Will. We'll remember him as our good friend and Rotarian who was full of life and vigor, who loved to go fishing. I still remember Will, Steve, and myself went fishing one day. I still remember that day. It is very sad that good people like Will have to go early, but he will be well remembered by his Russian friends in Vladivostok and many other Russian cities. May Will's memory live on forever. And from Steve Yoshida in Hilo, Hawaii, what a loss. We traveled the world for Rotary. Few know Will's global legacy. He tirelessly promoted health fairs, health through education and prevention of disease. The concept is now a permanent part of the healthcare systems in Russia, Mexico, and Fiji, thanks to Will. Personally, Will and Martha Ellen gave me the gift of writing. It was through their urging and support that I started writing books. Will painstakingly edited the drafts and gave me the confidence to persevere. Will may have passed, but the memories of our adventures, friendship, and his global legacy is forever. What a privilege to have known such an exceptional person. And from Noko Yoshida in Hilo, Hawaii, Steve and I wanted to show my home country of Japan to Will and Martha Ellen. Will hadn't traveled abroad, and he was like a sponge collecting water. Everything he saw and ate was new. It was a pleasure watching him, showing and introducing him to parts of Japan. He got along with all the host families and enjoyed each moment with them. When I was writing a Rotary matching grant, Will helped me with many of the details I needed to know. With Will and other Rotarians' help, our Rotary Club, Homer Downtown, received a large amount of matching grants, which helped purchase new microbuses to replace the buses that were destroyed by the tsunami at a kindergarten in northern Japan. I miss Will, and I'm glad that we have unforgettable memories together. And we shall all continue to miss Will. Thank you.
Gosh. Well now, just so you can wipe this off from something that's really been put on here, I'll make sure I put my hands on the podium a little bit. Hi. Speak up, Martha Ellen. You've got it.
It's so good to have you here.
Well, there it is. Because behind every good man, there's a good woman. And behind every good woman, there's a will and a way. And we know who that was.
Have to wipe off all the stuff that Kathy touched now.
Make sure you have something to do.
Keep me busy. Next are going to be our friends from the Rotary Club of Kachemak Bay.
How you doing, Martha? Just before I start, I'd like to say that when my late wife was diagnosed with ALS, Will and Martha Ellen stepped in and gave her, both of us, some very wonderful afternoons as we worked our way through that situation. It was rewarding for all of us. I'm Bernie Grifford, and I'm the current president of the Rotary Club Homer Kachemak Bay. Fairly new. I've only been a Rotarian for about 5 years. Will joined Rotary in September 1989. And from the day he came on board, his efforts personified the Rotary motto of service above self. All his activities, if you've heard touched on so far today, have not only impacted the local communities, but also, once he got the travel bug, he managed to get out and impact Rotary worldwide. By setting the example through his nurturing of new members, Will help build actually 2 Rotary clubs. It comes right down to that. The Downtown Club and, of course, the Rotary Club of Homer Kachemak Bay. And the membership, he helped to grow and strengthen the quality, so they could strengthen the quality of life at Homer. Think Spark, think skate park, tennis courts, and an insatiable appetite for pickleball. Will was one of the visionaries behind the development of Homer's Rotary Health Fair, which we all know is turned out to be one of the most fantastic things that we could do for the community, and for the, not just for all levels of the community. People who needed more health care could come there and get advice that didn't cost them anything. And we're going to do that again this year. Again, it looks like a little bit limited, but we will continue that, and will be the thought process and the motivation behind it. He then personally took this model that we developed here, as was mentioned, and took it around the world. And it is out there helping other nations at this time. And it proved again, it doesn't make a difference who you are or how small an organization you come from. if you want to, you can impact the world. And Will has done that. He connected with other Rotary clubs. There's a couple of programs Rotary has called friendship clubs and partnerships. He would get out there. He wanted to meet people. He wanted to go out and see how other clubs did. He wanted to go to other countries and see how they did. And he brought all that back. Great ideas. He connected with other Rotary clubs around the world to work safe water projects, which is a major Rotary focus area. Rotary's highest honor, the Service Above Self Award, recognizes up to 150 Rotarians out of 1.25 million Rotarians around the world each year, who demonstrate the commitment to helping others by volunteering their time and talents. In 2017, this recognition was conferred on Will Files, and we were very honored that we could celebrate with him at that time. Overall, Will Files was a helper and lived his life according to Rotary's four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? That was Will Files.
And I have to touch this. Will was my Rotary mentor, teacher, and trainer. He was the same for any Rotary member who asked him for help. His knowledge and expertise in a wide array of subjects was excellent. He was able to convey his knowledge in his unassuming, gentle, helpful style. He was amazingly generous with his time. For example, he taught me about our detailed grant process to help Rotary members obtain funds for local and international projects, and then mentored me when I taught others. He had a depth of knowledge about our Rotary Club and its history, which he willingly shared. I appreciated his smiles, encouragement, kindness, compassion. My husband and I have known Will and Martha Ellen for many years and became friends about 12 years ago when we moved to Homer. Will was lovingly devoted to Martha Ellen, always. Will touched and inspired me and all of us in Rotary. He was known and respected in the Russian Far East and Siberia for his work with health fairs, as you've heard, and the whole Rotary world knows him through both his health fair work and with the Rotary Health and Wellness Group. He put Homer, Alaska on the map of the Rotary world, and he highlighted us. Will demonstrated how to work towards Rotary's main goal, which is goodwill and peace throughout the world. And on behalf of the members of both our clubs, Rotary clubs, I can say how much we will miss Will. A truly humble, inspiring, and great person.
Thank you so much. Our friends from the Spark are going to speak next.
Hello, my name is Paul Knight, and it is a special gift in my life that I knew Will. I'm here to speak about the Spark. The Spark started out as a community effort for a soccer place for the kids. But as it was being talked about, it soon developed into a community building where we could play pickleball, possibly tennis, and a host of other things. And I'm sure that's how Will got involved with this. And to build something like this, there's two major costs: the materials and the labor. Will took on the labor part, and the biggest handicap he had is he had a budget of 0. But he had a wealth of contacts through pickleball, tennis, Rotary, coastal studies, and the myriad of other things. He had he had contacts, and he was not afraid of calling you or emailing you. And one cold and dreary winter in the winter of 2016, he put out a call, and a bunch of us got together for the initial unpackaging of this Spark thing, and here we were on site with literally piles of arches and boxes of 1 million nuts and bolts and braces, and we're looking at each other going, are you kidding me? But, well, the first project was, let's sort this stuff out, and he put the call out, and we had a crew of people there, and for the next year, Will was on top of it. He would, whatever the task was, he would put out the call, we would gather, and he was always there, make sure we had what we needed, and if we didn't have it, he would make sure, he would either go out and get it or send for it, and make sure that we were there, we had what we needed, we had coffee, we had donuts. If we were there all day, we had lunch. He would come several times during the day to make sure we had, and he'd be there at the end of the day, to help wrap things up. If we needed help, he would lend a hand. Although, there is several projects where we had to be hoisted on this forklift about 50 feet in the air to dangle up, to do the stuff up there. He never volunteered for that. Will was a smart man. But the reality is, this project, it took about a year or so to complete, and it could not have happened without the volunteer help. And that could not have happened without Will being at the forefront, organizing everybody, getting him there, being there himself, and making sure that happened. So the construction part of that, the Spark, a big part of it was Will getting the volunteer labor to come.
Thank you, Paul. I stepped in at the operations phase of the Spark, and we are so honored to be included today. Thank you. As I struggled to find the right words to express our deep love and appreciation for Will, I turned to images and conversations I recall that may show most fully what he meant to us as our friend and as the leader of the Spark. My first image is set on a blustery cold Saturday morning a few years ago. I was volunteering at the Spark for an event called Walk with the Doc, and I was sitting at the front counter, so I looked up each time the door opened to see who was arriving. In this instant, I looked up and I saw you, Martha Ellen, entering with Will. In my mind, it's a pastel scene, maybe because you were wearing one of your beautiful scarves, or maybe my mind just is colorizing the memory. I do remember you were both laughing, sharing some joke, or maybe just laughing at how the wind was pushing you through the door. Arm in arm, you were looking into each other's eyes, and you sheltered each other from the wind. This image struck me as a portrait of the fun, love, tenderness, and strength of your relationship. All of it mutual, wrapping around the two of you, creating an aura of grace. This image reminded me then, as it does today, that first and foremost, Will's world centered on his love for you and your family. In the coming days, we'll hear much about Will's public life and achievements. I want to pin front and center this image of his private world with you, which was the most dear to him. My second image is a composite one I have crafted from actual sightings in the wild of Will. In the past 5 years, I've worked with him at the Spark. I picture it as a caricature type drawing, or a Pictionary sketch, or maybe even an avatar. I guess I'm not supposed to use that term. So picture this, he's wearing a hard hat for obvious reasons. He never retired the hard hat. This past Christmas, he was up on a ladder in a snowstorm, hanging the Christmas lights on the Spark. Even though I had recruited some college soccer players to help with that. In one hand, he has a plunger. He came to the rescue when a circus performance overwhelmed our plumbing at the Spark. No task was beneath him. If he saw a need, he tried to fill it himself. And then if he recognized he couldn't, he called the right person. And then in his other hand is his notepad folder binder. He brought it to the coffee shop, the board meetings, the 4-acre trainings, staff job interviews, strategic planning sessions, and I would bet it was next to him during our Zoom meetings. To me, his notepad represents his leadership superpowers. Most leaders are either detail-oriented organizational wizards or big-picture dreamers who inspire. Will was both. He was the perfect leader to bridge our transitions from building a facility to operating it to sustaining it. To me, his most brilliant leadership superpower was his ability to get every single one of us to say yes. Right? At Monday's Spark Board meeting, every single person shared their story of how Will got us to jump in. They were all different but similar. I think his secret was that to Will, since he saw service as a joy and honor, when he recruited new team members, he wasn't asking, he was offering. He wasn't asking me to be on the board as if it were a duty. It was like he was excited to tell me, there's a spot for you on this dream team, Ginny. Let's go to the Olympics. And I was pretty proud of my ability to say no. I had met my match. He saw strengths in us that we didn't see in ourselves, and he imagined our collective strength like no other. In this sketch, Will is striding purposefully. He didn't rush, but he arrived at any task, any gathering, with a focus and purposefulness that inspired all of us to come along, and all who did are better for the experience. And to complete this picture, of course, Will is smiling. I asked friends to help me describe his smile. We came up with a thesaurus of words, but none fully capture it. Finally, about 6:30 a.m. today, I realized we don't need words. We can all close our eyes and picture it. And the remembered image of his smile will bring us comfort, as it did during his life. His humor was an extension of his kindness and was a tonic for much of what ailed us the past few years. The third and last memory I want to share took place, I think, the fall of 2018. We had convinced the State Youth Soccer Board to hold their annual meeting in Homer, featuring a tour of the Spark. And footnote, if any of you want a private tour, let me know. We'll get you over there. Will led this tour and answered questions with soccer officials from all over the state, as well as the National Youth Soccer Office. He spent 10-15 minutes with the delegation from Fairbanks, as they were particularly interested in how they could replicate the Spark in their community. As we walked back to the conference, one of the Fairbanks guys asked me, "So Ginny, how do we find a guy like Will?" And I just laughed and said, "I don't know, but you can't have ours." And in replaying that memory today, I realized two things. First, how amazing is it that after a 15-minute conversation, complete strangers realized that this human being was gold. He was a community treasure. And I would bet anything that at no time during that conversation did Will use the word I. Finally, recalling that conversation while holding our first image front and center, I realized that I had misspoken that day when I claimed Will as ours. He wasn't ours. First and foremost, Martha Allen, he was yours. And we are forever grateful to you and your family for sharing him with us.
Thank you. Our last friends sharing formal remarks today are from one of Will's favorite hobbies, tennis.
Not very good at this public speaking thing. especially about Will. Brings back too many memories of about 1.5 years ago with Gary Thomas. Two of the most treasured community people this town's ever had. So anyway, Martha Ellen, to all your family, Will's family, just so grateful you could be here. We call Will, or let's put it this way, I coined a new term for Will as of Tuesday. The King of the Courts of Homer. That's his title. Anyway, like I said, I don't know how to do this very well, but all of us know the love and the graciousness of the Wilster. It's what we called him at the tennis courts, was the Wilster, because he was just so shady. And as I've listened to every one of you speak, and I'm glad you all went before me because you said so many things I can't possibly say. There's too many words to describe Will. And I'm going to try to keep it short. I wrote it down. I have a script, but I'm off script. I'm probably going to be off script most of this time. I'll try to read it. But anyway, it's been said before today. We all knew him the same way. And no matter where each of us fit into his wonderful world, the stories we all have are different, but the same. And he treated everybody that way. He treated everybody the same. And a new person would show up in the tennis court. Man, he'd greet them, want to know about them. Whenever there was a break and he was not playing in rotation, he'd get to know them. Made them feel comfortable. Anyway, I hope to give a brief synopsis, as hard as this will be, about the man, the Homer tennis, and pickle. Sorry. This is pretty tough. Homer tennis and pickleball communities knew as about the most energetic influence for the two sports that nobody else could have possibly pulled off as well as Will. So full of life, right up to the last Monday afternoon, when Will played like he had all these years. He had to compensate for a gimpy knee and shoulder, but he never could be taken for granted. He just got more accurate and would attack the ball at the net like he was a kid, making a dink drop shot, cross-court winner. He would dig out a newly learned two-handed backhand shot down the line for another winner. This happened multiple times a day. Literally every day we played together. He played with the heart of a competitive teen. Even last Monday. Amazing. So much fun to play with Will. In the roughly 25 years, I think it's probably more 30 years that we have all been blessed to play with Will. He loved to play. He never changed. He was always good. He helped us all improve our game by challenging us with his skill and accuracy. It did. It made us work harder. Made us learn how to be more skillful. And he was so gracious at teaching us too. Whenever there were young ones that needed teaching, he was right there to step in. Will was our leader. He led the charge in getting a youth tennis program going, finding a wonderful volunteer instructor in Carrie, who was a PE teacher, a number of young folk, and that lasted for 3 seasons. A number of young folk got rackets and balls and skills. He was sure to promote multiple work parties throughout the summer to weed eat and blow off the high school tennis courts. He would appropriate materials to clean and fill ongoing cracks on the surface of the asphalt, painting lines, mending of nets, etc. And he was always willing to call to get us all involved in getting that work done. But he was always the first one there and always followed through until it was done. He was headlong involved in getting the Spark online, as you have heard, in the new Calumet Court upgrade, which is currently in the process of being transformed into so many people's vision. And in the meantime, those pickleball players that play outside out there are now going to come to the high school. We now have currently, the principal has authorized 3 courts, pickleball courts, to be painted on top of the 2 outer of the 4 courts at the high school. So 3 are now painted, and 2 sets of nets are up there, and people are ready to come and fill that spot. He was always there to be sure we had an annual tennis party. Very wonderful times when gathered together with so many, and even those that didn't play anymore because they were still his family. Martha Ellen, the best part of Will's life, was always with him at these parties. She is the joy of so many. You will be taken care of, my dear. Anyway, Martha Ellen was Will's first priority, but tennis was surely his second. He never complained about missed tennis when it came to being there for his sweetheart. Not once. Martha Ellen, please note that home and community will do our best to assist you as you have need. We love you so much. I do want to share one personal thing real quick before I let Mary Ann speak. I have a 17-year-old precious daughter who we adopted outside of Vladivostok. And Will was so there during the process of the adoption for us, and encouraging, and just to have known that Will was such a part of the hearts of many over there. It was very special to be able to go there, and I could just sense Will encouraging me and blessing me as I was over there, and my wife ended up going over too the second time to get our little girl, our little baby girl. She's now 17, and she's just a lovely, lovely lady. She loves Will tremendously, and Will loved her a lot too. So thank you. Anyway, this is Mary Ann, and I would like to ask her to read a comment from John Mink, one of our tennis people who's been around a long time too.
Yeah, all of our tennis entourage is with us here today, spiritually anyway, and this is from John Mink, who, I'm just going to quote what he said. I've known Will for many years. Out of all the players that have graced their presence at our Homer tennis court, there was none better for the organization than Will. We will all miss Will for his positive demeanor, his sportsmanship, his ferocious drop shots, and his temerity our courts well maintained for play over many years. Temerity to keep our courts well maintained. His love for the sport will be etched in memorial at the entrance to the high school courts. We will lacquer a racket to mount above the gate, not only in love and memory for all that knew him, but also as a simple, everlasting token that will be displayed for every soul that walks into our humble courts. May he forever play tennis in the beyond and have all of his drop shots be winners to our absent brother. And just as my final comment, there's been a lot of adjectives to describe Will today, and there always will be, but one thing that encompasses it all is his playful nature. Whatever he was doing, he played. And we got to see the real play on the tennis courts, but sounds like whatever event or organization he participated in, he made it a positive, fun experience to do his best.
Hi, appreciate so much all of you who came to share today, but I do know that there are others who might have some words that they want to share too. So we're going to take a few minutes and we'll bring around the wireless microphone so you can stay in your seat. And I'm going to bring our live streaming camera with us so that all of those people who are viewing from home, and I can see just on the screen of my phone how many have joined us today that are part of this and here with us in spirit. So if you think just for a moment, if you would like to say a few words, and we will bring you the microphone here in just a moment.
I'm David Raskin, and I live down the street from Will and Martha Ellen. We first met Will when we built our house in '95, down the street from where he built his in '94, and we became very fast friends. I will say this about Will, to paraphrase Will Rogers: Will never met a man he didn't like. And he also, to add another paraphrase, he never met a man or woman he didn't recruit to do something beneficial for him. Will and I became very fast friends. I would say after my lovely wife of 62 years, he was and will remain my best friend in Homer. We fished together, we traveled together. Martha Ellen and Will and Marga and I spent 3 weeks on our boat on a 1,000-mile journey all the way around Prince William Sound from Homer. And we always got along, we always had fun. He never got upset when I always outfished him, because Will was always so kind to everyone. And I will never forget his friendship, his helpfulness. Whenever I needed somebody to help me, he was there and willing to do it without a second thought. He was one of the kindest, gentlest, loving people I've ever known. And to reinforce that, I will say that even though we often disagreed about things and had long conversations, he always treated me and I treated him with respect and love. In fact, 2 days before he passed away, I spent an hour and a half on the phone with him just talking about different things. And we will miss him dearly, and we will try to help Martha Ellen as much as we can, because we are just down the block from you, as you know, Martha Ellen, and we're there for you. Thank you.
I'm also Will's neighbor. I'm Martha Ellen and everyone. My name is Jeannie. I live in between David and Will and Martha Ellen. And the picture in my mind that I have is when I don't even think we signed on our house yet. And Will and Martha Ellen come hiking up our road, hand in hand, as he's helping Martha Ellen get up there, and barely made it down our steps because we're under construction always. And they come in, and Will, the gentleman that he is, we didn't even have floors yet, takes off his shoes. And Houston, my son, who's 3, who couldn't stay because he's 3, put on his shoes. Martha Ellen, I don't know if you remember this. And I said, wow, buddy, those are really big shoes to fill. And Will goes, no, they're just his size. And I'm always gonna think about that, because ever since he passed, I have this ringing in my ear of Will telling me, now, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. Everything that we did, coffee dates, Catchmack Park, rejuvenation. I've been with Will a lot since we moved in, and he's always telling me, don't give up. And as Houston wears his shoes, I'm going to instill that in the next generation as much as I can.
Okay, I'm Martha Ellen's niece from up in the Kenai, Nikiski area. And we have a large family up there. And I remember when Will first came and was a part of the family. And he'd walk into the room and he would bring the light and the peace. And it didn't matter if it was a room or if it was outside. Will always made sure to try to get to as many family gatherings as he could. And we usually had 3 to 4 a year, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Often we had picnics on the beach for holidays in the summer, and then a big August birthday party for years. And he celebrated his birthday along with my daughter's birthday was the same day, my brother's birthday. They all 3 shared a birthday, as well as other August birthdays, and it was just always a very special time because Will was, like I said, very friendly to everybody. And there was always a question, are Will and Martha gonna make it? Are they gonna make it here? But they always did their best to get to the parties, whether it be Christmas and then it was cold and they spent the night up there before they came back or not. And it was just always a big part of our family up there. And even a month ago, Martha and Will were up visiting my dad, her brother, and my dad had just come through a pretty difficult time. And I happened to go out to visit my dad the day after my Aunt Martha and Will were there, and my dad's question was, or my dad's comment was, Will was wondering when's the next family gathering? And obviously because of COVID, we've had to make smaller family gatherings and not have the big ones, but it got me thinking, even at that time, could we possibly put together an outside family gathering for August? You know, but it was partly inspired by Will. And he was just always a big, important part of our family. And then another thing, I really liked the picture of the many rooms and the tunnels that he had to connect them. Because with my job, I come to Homer on a regular basis, or I was on a monthly basis, and working with kids and families and things in Homer. And he would always ask me things like, well, have you gone to the Spark yet? Have you taken your kids, the families, and done field trip to the Spark or the coastal studies? And because of him and his suggestions and his ideas, we went to the coastal studies, we did the Spark, we did the Wind Nature Center, and I even tried playing pickleball at the Spark and I thought of Will the whole time, and he's just been such an important part. And I have a saying that I try to live by, but it really reminds me of him. And it says, every job is a self-portrait of the person who does it. Autograph your work with excellence. And to me, that's exactly who he is.
Would anyone else like to share?
I'm new to the family. In fact, I started dating one of the cousins 2 years ago, and I didn't meet Will until June 19th of this year. And one of the things I keep remembering, Will and I were talking, and Martha was talking to her sister, and Martha turned her head and said, keep it down, you two, you're talking too much. And I keep thinking of that all the time whenever I think of Will. Thank you.
I'll mention this just very briefly. Will did have a way of honing in on people's interests, and because he was interested, he would talk to people and he would figure out what we wanted, you know, out of life and out of each other and stuff. And I really love international work. And so Will got me into going to Burma and to China for very, very short Rotary trips. But it really was because of Will and then Jane that I was able to do that. And it's because Will listened, he understood something that was really important to me. And he just, as soon as it came up in Rotary, he called me and he told me that the possibility existed for that. Was I interested? You know, just kind of out of nowhere. I was really more a friend of Martha Ellen's, but Will became a very important part of my life in that way. And I won't forget him for that. They were fabulous trips. Thank you, Jane, also.
My name's Ginger, Martha Ellen, and I've been friends for a long time. And she asked me, this was right before the pandemic, she asked me, and I had just gotten a new job, and it was a love-hate job. And the love was the actual work, and the hate was anything to do with computer. And I didn't realize that one of Will's major things in his background is that he was a computer shark. So he was listening to the conversation as Martha Ellen was asking me, and he just very sweetly said, "Oh, I could probably help you." But because lots of us, when we're not good at something, we put it away. So it was weeks and weeks before I was ready to go belly up. And I called him and I asked him. And he started coming over. We got together once a week, sometimes twice a week, either at your house, Martha Ellen, or at my house. And he was so good. But what was so sweet about Will was, and here I was, and still sort of am, kind of at the bottom of the barrel, computer-wise. He was so sweet. He would never, ever act like it was anything that I was missing. It was, oh no, that's just Microsoft. They're horrible. Oh no, that's Google. Oh no, that's Gmail. Oh no, it was never Ginger. And you know, he was just so kind and so nice and such a helper. Mr. Rogers was so right. He was my helper, and he was so kind in his helping me. And I love that. And also Martha Ellen never seemed to be bothered by the fact that it was taking from our time. He was just helping, and you were always so happy that he was helping me. And I love that. I love you, and I love Mr. Will.
I want to turn to the families for a moment and see if Brad or Freya or any of the other, Austin or Martha Ellen, if any of you would like to speak. Do you want to say something?
I just want to say that not only would Will be thrilled with you all here, but I am. Will was the extrovert, and he went out very easily, but I haven't seen some of you recently, but it means a lot to me that you are here and that you are sharing your experience of Will. It was very sudden, his passing, and I don't think I have a story together to tell, just because it was just very short. And but he genuinely was everything that you said. He really it's deep embedded in his missionary background, I think, and being an only child also, that he really wanted, maybe even needed to reach out to all of you. And sometimes he didn't have to find, sometimes at the beginning he didn't have time for me, but he grew in our relationship also. And I have to agree with you, he's a pretty great man.
I'm going to invite Dave and Ola back to share music with us again.
eagle's wings bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of God's hand. And God will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of God's hand.
And now, I would like all of you to read with me the words of the Lord's Prayer, which are written in your program. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Let us pray. God of us all, your love never ends. When all else fails, you are still God. We pray to you for one another in our time of need, and for everyone everywhere who mourns with us today. To those who doubt, give light. To those who are weak, give strength. To all who have sinned, show mercy. And to all who sorrow, grant your peace. Keep true in us the love with which we hold one another. In all our ways, we trust you. And to you, we offer honor and glory now and forever. O God, all that you have given us is yours. As first you gave Will Files to us, now we give Will back to you. We commend to you your servant Will. Receive him into the arms of your love and mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of all the saints. Amen.
Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, that are throughout the universe displayed. And since my soul Savior God to thee, how great thou art, how great thou art. And since my soul, my Savior God to thee, how great thou art.
Will you please stand as you're able for our closing prayer? Our closing prayer is one that Kirby shared with me. It's a prayer his papa heard often growing up because it was prayed every week at Sunday evensong at Will's alma mater, St. Paul's. This prayer is by John Henry Newman. May you receive it as a benediction and a blessing. O Lord, support us all the day long until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes and the busy world is hushed and the fever of life is over and our work is done. Then, in thy mercy, grant us a safe lodging and a holy rest and peace at last. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I do want to remind you that there is a reception at the picnic shelter at Bishop's Beach from 4 to 6 if you would like to stop by there and have some more time of sharing with the family.